Good morning and welcome to First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church of Fort Worth, Texas. I am the Reverend Foerster, minister of and to this congregation. We are coming up on 4 full months of recording our services and presenting them online. This is our 17th Sunday of looking out into an empty church with a full heart and a troubled mind. We have conducted 3 regular board meetings and 2 emergency board meetings on Zoom, where we vote to remain cautious and carry on with forbearance until we can see a way clear through the dangers of COVID-19. We have held a virtual congregational meeting where we voted on this year's budget, the fiscal year having begun this week. We are getting used to seeing each other as pixels on a screen or masked faces across a nearly empty room. But we are still a community of love and caring, a community that stumbles blindly toward a future that includes one another's live presence. I welcome you, beloved members and cherished visitors. Please join us in our worship today as we continue to ask questions of the universe and in the silence create answers of our own. If you would like to receive a copy of our monthly newsletter and weekly updates, contact administrator@firstjefferson.org and ask to be put on our mailing list. We would love to include you. In the meantime, sit back and prepare yourself for an hour of gratitude and exploration as we listen to the musical renditions of our Minister of Music, Misha Berestnev. Misha. Purim, a Jewish holiday and holy day meant to commemorate the first attempted Jewish genocide told in the book of Esther. For millennia, people have gathered together to hear stories, to root for the underdog, to jeer the evil and the unkind. We see in our stories mirrors of our own lives, where we hope good things will happen to good people, and that evil will be vanquished. This morning we gather for story, for cheering and jeering, for hope and for justice. May these ancient stories shed new light on our own lives, and may we know ourselves connected to millions of listeners who have come before us and millions of listeners who will come after us. Let us worship together. And let us start with our first hymn. The words come from hymn number 315, but This congregation isn't familiar with that tune, so we're asking the pianist to play 356. This is just in case you have a book at home and are wondering, but the words will be on your screen, so sing along with us.
This old world is full of sorrow, full of sickness, weak and sore. If you love your neighbor truly, love will come to you the more. We're all children of one family. We're all brothers, sisters too. If you cherish one another, love and friendship come to you. This old world can be a garden full of fragrance, full of grace. If we love our neighbors truly, we must meet them face to face. It is said, now love thy neighbor, and we know well that is true. This the sum of human labor, true for me as well as you.
Our song leader this morning is Dan Levine. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Misha. We light our chalice now to a reading called Embrace the Night. Please join me. Universal mystery, guide us away from the desire to shine light in all corners. Teach us to embrace the night, for without the darkness, we never see the stars. The service this morning is titled Real Life, the 7 Principles and the 6 Sources. And the questions that come up for me today are 3. First, how do we live our lives knowing there is evil in the world? Second, what inspires us to improve our lives and the lives of others? And finally, what in our faith shows us how to do that? No, compels us to do that. Well, we can respond to that last question immediately. Let us bring up our covenant with one another, the affirmation of our intentions to be the best that we can be. It is very compelling. Let us repeat it together. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. These are the words: love, truth, service, peace, freedom, seek, serve, community, harmony with creation, and covenant. These are words like balloons we throw out for the world to hear, a call to join us, a referendum for our intentions. Let us tether these balloons today that we might examine them more closely for inspiration in these difficult times. But first, I'd like to share with you a story for all ages. called The Bad Seed. Our very unusual story this morning is read by Thomas Earthman, a religious education coordinator at First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church. But don't close your ears when it gets too frightening. There is hope coming at the end and lessons to be learned. Thomas?
Good morning, everyone. It's Thomas with today's story for all ages. I'm going to be reading you The Bad Seed. It's a story by Jory John. We have illustrations by Pete Oswald. Let's begin. I am a bad seed. A bad seed. Oh yeah, it's true. Other seeds, they look at me and they say, that seed is so bad. And when they think I'm not listening, they mumble, there goes a bad seed. But I can hear them. I have good hearing for a seed. How bad am I? You really want to know? Well, I never put things back where they belong. I am late to everything. I tell long jokes with no punchlines. I never wash my hands or my feet. I lie about pointless stuff. I cut in line every time. I stare at everybody. I glare at everybody. I finish everybody's sentences, and I never listen. And I do lots of other bad things too. Know why? Because I'm a bad seed. A bad seed. I just can't help it. Sure, I wasn't always this bad. I was born a humble seed. In a simple sunflower, on an unremarkable field, I had a big family, seeds everywhere. We found ways of having fun. We were close. But then the petals dropped, and our sunflower drooped. It's kind of a blur. I remember a bag. Everything went dark. And then a giant. I thought I was a goner. I thought I was done for. I screamed and I hollered, "Ah!" But I was spit out at the last possible second. I flew through the air and I landed under the bleachers with a huge thud. And when I woke up, it was dark outside. A wad of gum had softened my fall. I felt okay, but something had changed in me. I'd become a different seed entirely. I'd become a bad seed. A bad seed. That's right. I stopped smiling. I kept to myself. I drifted. I was friend to nobody and bad to everybody. I was lost on purpose. I lived inside a soda can, and I didn't care, and it suited me. Until recently. I've made a big decision. I've decided I don't want to be a bad seed anymore. I'm ready to be happy. It's hard to be good when you're so used to being bad, but I'm trying. I'm taking it one day at a time. Sure, I still forget to listen, and I still show up late. And I still talk during movies, and I do all kinds of other bad stuff. But I also say thank you, and I say please, and I smile. And I hold the door open for people. Not always, but sometimes. And even though I still feel bad sometimes, I also feel kinda good. It's sort of a mix. And all I can do is keep trying and keep thinking. Maybe I'm not such a bad seed after all. Hey, there goes that bad seed. Actually, he's not all that bad anymore. I heard that.
My first response to the questions I asked is this. When I was in seminary, I took several classes at the University of Chicago. A religion professor there one day was talking about the variety of religious denominations in this country and what each had to offer. He mentioned Unitarian Universalism because there were several of us in his class. And then he said, I would probably be a Unitarian except for one thing. You have no concept of evil, and I don't think you can have a religious faith without one. Well, I rejected his comment as simple Christian bias. Of course we knew about immorality and that villainy existed. Of course we understood that bad things happened. We just didn't choose to roll about in it and get it all over ourselves. We didn't let it rule our optimistic outlook for a better future. Like many Unitarian Universalists, I had rejected the idea of original sin a long time before this. I didn't see it as helpful to assume that we started out immoral and got worse unless we had the help of a mythical being. I like the clean slate approach to human existence. We were born innocent and pure. Yes, we learned bad habits. Yes, we were susceptible to temptation, starting with candy and working our way up to sex as we got older. But by and large, we were nice people who thought predominantly happy thoughts. And we were kind to each other, mostly. But I'm beginning to understand what he meant. We don't stress a concept of sin or evil. We don't start from down and progress upward. We try to start from nice and progress to compassionate. And we pretty much don't label our own bad actions as wrongdoings or evil manifestations of sin. We try to understand the reasons for our behavior and our misbehavior, and we look the other way at the behavior itself as long as it doesn't disrupt our relationships with and our services to other. Did you know that the early Unitarian order of service contained a segment called Confessions? Yes. Every Sunday we, or our predecessors, were compelled to repeat a statement, much the same as we repeat the covenant, that said, we have done wrong since last we met, and we'd need to admit it, say it out loud, and ask for forgiveness. But somewhere before mid-19th century we said, well, gee, it doesn't do us any good to say we have contributed to the evil of the world. Let's just talk about the good that we do and live positive lives. And we dropped the confession from the order of service, just got rid of it, forgot all about it. Eventually, we replaced confession with 7 very positive principles that we agreed to affirm and promote. Not us as individuals, actually, but our churches as they joined in association. Affirm and promote. That's the wording. not live by, not build our lives around, not hold up as a mirror to our conscience. Affirm and promote. It's as if they come with an understood warning label, not for internal consumption, for external use only. Affirm and promote. And yet, here we are today, surrounded by evils we cannot deny. Racial injustices, climate calamities, financial disparities, educational inequalities, medical treatment imbalances, privilege discrepancies, quality of life distinctions, and action inconsistencies. We are in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, and the two major methods of controlling it are to open the economy so business can continue to operate, or to work together to contain it until a method of controlling it can be developed. Same old arguments: money versus lives, rich versus poor, white versus black, young versus old. The oldest arguments in the world, the original sin of arguments. And we'll all agree none of this is because of us. It was the rich guys, the politicians, the neo-Nazis, the ultra-conservatives. Pick your least favorite group. And here we all are, in the middle of it. None of it our own choosing and causing, because we ain't sinners. And what are we going to do about it? Can we affirm and promote our way out of this dilemma? If it's all we've got, I think we ought to try. I think we ought to name the evils that exist in our world and ask if maybe we aren't contributing toward their continuation at least. Ask if there isn't in us some responsibility for letting it happen, letting those evils continue. Couldn't we perhaps step back from finding causes we can support and look inside ourselves in order to see if we didn't cause or at least support some of the evil that is going on in the world as we speak? When we knew realtors were redlining certain districts, did we refuse to buy a house in that area until they agreed to sell to someone with a darker complexion? When we knew that automobiles were a big cause of air pollution, did we take fewer trips, or did we stop buying out-of-season fruits and vegetables that had to be trucked up from Mexico? When we knew that education was not delivered evenly throughout the district, did we complain to the school board that our kids' school got more money than the one down the road? When we knew the company we interviewed for didn't hire Democrats or minorities or promote women, did we take the job anyway and consider ourselves lucky to get it? When we heard a new kind of virus had hit our shore, did we change our behavior, wear masks right away, or wait until they became mandatory? Did we take what was offered to us because we could and not consider those who never got the same offers? Those are the kinds of questions I mean. I confess I do not get a perfect score in that kind of test. My guess is neither do you, no matter what color you identify with or what your bank balance reveals about you or how well-meaning your intentions have been. Affirm and promote indeed. Well, in my usual manner, I have raised more questions than I have answered. I'm going to step back a little while and take another approach. I'm going to breathe a bit, respond to a different question, but in the same category. And I'm going to let you think about your response to this one and the ones I've raised anew. In the meantime, I will share with you this week's generosity report. As I said, we started on our new fiscal year this week. Right now, we have money coming in from pledges, promises that the school will open in some manner this fall and their rent will be coming in. Some of you have paid your annual pledge in full or by half year or quarter year. That helps the cash flow, and we thank you for that. Others may want to consider it. Contributions of pet food continue to pour in. The collection box is outside our door every Wednesday afternoon and evening. Volunteers inside the church are bagging it in individual containers and taking it to Eastside Community Services for distribution. And we thank you for that. The board has declared another month of not providing in-person services as the incidents and deaths from the coronavirus are on the rise in Tarrant County and elsewhere in Texas. So keep washing your hands, keep wearing masks in public, it's now mandatory, and sheltering in place. I know it's hard, but it's necessary. And we thank you for taking care of yourselves because we are looking forward to seeing you in person again. Here's some good news. The board appointed an ad hoc committee to look into some kind of brief, well-organized, safely conducted event from time to time, possibly outdoors. The 21 people who attended the hanging of the new banner so enjoyed the encounter with other people, even though they had to remain 6 feet apart. We want to offer more safe opportunities to see members of our community across a 6-foot space and carefully masked. Now, if we have to limit the number of participants, we will have more than one event so that everyone gets a chance to mingle distantly. But that still is in the future. We're just talking about it. And finally, thanks to the group leaders and teachers who are offering more and more online meetings. Look in the Courier and Weekend What's Happening to find out how to join them. If you want to suggest a meeting of your own, ask how you can use the church's Zoom accounts by contacting either president or minister at firstjefferson.org. And thank you for all your generosities. Let's just take a moment to sing a hymn of gratitude. It's number 21 in our books. It's titled, For the Beauty of the Earth. In the spirit of thanks and gratitude, please join us in the singing, and Dan, will you lead us?
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
So this is my second response. Having to admit to evil in the world, even sin, if you will, and acknowledging that we may have played a part in it, however small, let's turn to my second question. What inspires us to improve our lives and the lives of others? That's the key, and the lives of others. Because that is what we try to do as Unitarian Universalists. We believe in the psychology meme that change doesn't happen in anyone's life unless they are embedded in a community that accepts them as they are and offers them models of who they might become. Personally, I'm inspired by what others are doing to solve our shared problems. When we were meeting together, I was inspired by those who stood up in front of us once a month and shared their stories under the rubric Light on Community Service. I remember a few of them clearly, and now that we haven't been able to add to that cavalcade of stories, I'm sorry we didn't insist on keeping a permanent record of them. We will do that from now on. There are so many people in this small congregation who go out of their way to work with those who need help, who work on literacy in the grade schools with children who have a small window of opportunity to become proficient in reading before they lose that ability to learn and to learn that reading could benefit the rest of their lives. There are people who work on bringing meals daily to a group of elders and infirm who can't provide for themselves, who drive people to doctor's appointments or to the grocery stores, who visit shut-ins, who work at the food bank, who reach out to friends and acquaintances and say, "You belong here at First Jefferson. Come join us," who offer time and money to help organizations that support their beliefs, who seek and find ways to teach or support or speak kindly to or about, who live their faith in the works that they do. I usually watch the PBS NewsHour for my understanding of the world because in addition to reporting all the bad news, they have features that look at what individuals and groups are doing to make this a better world to live in, and I am inspired by that. I'm inspired by books. That's why I started the bookshelf, a list of books recommended by members of this church for inspiration and edification about the world's ills and how to cure them. I suggest you read at least one of them, and I hope you read them all. They will tell you that the world of illnesses and remedies is wider than you imagined on your own. To do good, you must first educate yourself. I'm inspired by art and music, both that created by human beings and that created by nature. I try to get in the way of them as often as I can because they make me stronger and able to get out of my own way. And I am inspired by you, by your kindnesses to one another, by your caring, by your need to work for others, by your thoughtfulness and your challenges. I'm inspired by the banners you have agreed to hang on our building so the world knows what inspires you. Love is love. Black lives matter. Climate change is real. No human being is illegal. All genders are whole, holy, and good. Women have agency over their bodies. All that on just one banner. And then there's the LGBTQ support banner and the Side of Love banner at the back entrance. Be inspired and be inspiring. Let us all commit to these inspirations every day of our lives. Let us live as Unitarian Universalists, believing these things are true and good and achievable. This is the time in our service when we share a communion of names and milestones, where we talk about what's going on in this beloved community. Sometimes the stories aren't shared, but we know that they live in community, and we keep one another in our hearts. This week, our administrator, Carl Thibodeau, said, "I need a vacation." And I said, "You ought to take one." And he is now on vacation. It is amazing how hard Carl works, even when we are not meeting every week, even when there are no orders of service to print. He's here keeping things running in the building, usually all by himself. And so think of him this week as he's not going anywhere. He's going to work on things he needs to do at home, and he's going to check his emails occasionally and will be on call if needed. But in your hearts, say to him, "Carl, take a vacation. You need it." This morning, I am pleased that our Director of Religious Education, our Coordinator of Religious Education, Thomas Earthman, is with us at the recording this morning, learning how we do this. And so we have all of our staff working and still getting paid because of a generous grant from the PPP and another from NTUC, the North Texas Council of Unitarian Universalist Churches. So there are many things to be happy about. Let us know how you are doing so that we may report it next Sunday. And in the meantime, let us take a moment of shared silence to consider the blessings that we do have in these difficult times. We still have one another. We are only a phone call or a text away. Take out your directory and be in touch with one another. Join the services that we have on Zoom, online, the Sunday services that are on our website and on Facebook. And let us be a community of love and kindness together. Misha. My reading this morning comes from a tombstone in Germany. It originally came from the confessions of a Lutheran minister in Nazi Germany after World War II, was written up as a poem, and this quote on the tombstone exists from that. "They came first for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Catholics, and I didn't speak up because I was a Protestant. And then they came for me, and by that time, no one was left to speak up." I'm sorry, I don't know how many times I read that. I always cry. My final question this morning is, what in our faith shows us how to make the world a better place to live in? No, compels us to do so. In spite of what I said earlier about the 7 principles that they seem to be for external use only, I think they do compel us to think about the world outside ourselves. But they are not easy to follow, because if you try to examine them closely, they are like cactus beds, nice to look at, but full of prickly spines. I mean, take just the first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Yes, who wouldn't support that? Inherent, meaning permanent and essential. Yes, we need to treat one another as if we are worthwhile. Treat them with dignity. I can get excited about that, can't you? And then we come to the last 2 words, every person. Every person? Well, do you mean exactly every person? And there comes the thorn. Do I have to like every person? Do I have to treat people with dignity even if they have no dignity whatsoever in their own actions and statements? Do I have to give them the same dignity I give to people with whom I agree? You see what I mean? They're prickly. It doesn't pay to get too close to them unless you want pricklers. That's one reason why I brought them up in the first place. I think it's time that we do look at them under different colored lights and against different real life situations. I want to spend this summer using the principles as backdrops to different topics, different situations, as it were, against what's going on in the world and against what change might make it a better world. And I'd really like your responses. Now, I don't have time to go through all 7 principles at this point in the morning or give you a short version of the sermon I preached last year suggesting an 8th principle. That's why I'm considering that the whole summer be spent with their compelling messages and suggestions held over our heads like spotlights on our thoughts and our actions. What does it really mean to be a person who affirms and supports these principles? What would we be if we swallowed them whole? How do they inform your faith, your actions? So for what's left of this morning together, I would like to look at the less often quoted sources of the document that outlines the 7 principles. It says our religious traditions are drawn from various places, not just a single book or a single faith tradition or a single inspiration, but from many sources that have come down to us from history, from people, and from our own experiences. Yes, I love that first source of our living tradition that comes from our own direct experience of the world that transcends mystery and wonder. Oh, we are a denomination that has given our trust to science and the scientific method, but it thrills me and embraces me that we include mystery and wonder. Because if we are truthful, these are things in all our lives that can't be explained by science. There are things that leave us no choice but to just simply accept them because they are part of our individual experience. I mean, isn't love one of those experiences of mystery and wonder? And we believe in love, even though we can't hold it in our hand or examine it under a microscope. Love compels me. Love compels you. The list of sources goes on to include words and deeds of prophetic women and men, people who dare to think beyond the accepted dogma of the day. It includes wisdom from all the world's traditions because they are all based on individual experience, prophetic words and deeds, and hopeful restoration of an ailing world. Our sources name different denominational teachings as well as both religious and secular humanist teachings, but doesn't exclude any of those that are unnamed. It includes earth-based religions like those celebrated by our own cups and the kindred of this church, by Native Americans and other first-person cultures. I'm inspired and compelled by the fact that my faith tradition is not only deep, but it is wide. Please join me this summer to explore our faith, your faith, and the world in which we live, warts and all, sins and sacrifices. And please add suggestions to the bookshelf. Let us know what you're reading and how it makes a difference to you. Please join us on Tuesday evenings at 7 as we talk about it. It being the Sunday service or anything it provoked in you. Look for the link in your newsletter. The final words of this document that we're uplifting that lists the 7 principles and the 6 sources are these. Grateful for the religious Grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith. We are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. As free congregations, we enter into this covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. Yes, deepen our understanding, expand our vision. That is compelling work for the coming summer as we dwell apart but love alike, as we begin again in love. Our closing hymn is a confession of sorts. I will speak the confessions and Dan will lead us in the singing of the acts of contrition and forgiveness. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our hearts have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusions of our separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again.
The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives in the minds and the hearts and the souls of each one of you. Carry the flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet. Each of us ministers to a weary world. There is too much hardship in this world to not find joy every day. There is too much injustice in this world to not right the balance every day. There's too much pain in this world to not heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and more filled with the grace of divine presence every day. So may it be in all our lives. Misha.